Good evening. I hope everyone can hear me. I see that uh, Ms. Gumala is on. Hopefully you can hear me. Everyone can hear me loud and clear. And this is my first time doing a GoToMeeting, so I hope this works well. Um, and certainly let me know, um, Ms. Gumala, if you can hear me or if you have any challenges. You can send me a chat message or let me know one way or the other. But I hope people will be coming in to join. And I wanted to, one first, as we get started, it says talking Dr. Days, but Dr. Days is not talking. It's me, Nikki Ham, the school counselor. And we wanted to try a different format to hopefully provide ease and availability for people. So this session is being recorded. I apologize, I'm out of breath. I was running upstairs, but it is being recorded. At least I hope it is. And so my intention is to be able to then share this with others. So one of the things what we're going to do is I want to be able to provide you with information, and hopefully prayerfully this is very informative for you. This is our first time doing it in this format, so prayerfully this is an informative format for you. So again, I want to thank you for taking the time. And certainly I can see there's a chat button here, so I can see if questions come up. Oh, great, you can hear me. Wonderful. So I need to make sure I can see the chat button, but I'm glad that you can hear me. So we'll just go ahead and get started. It's 6:15, and I want to be very aware of the time for everyone, or 6:17. And so people can kind of log in and join in. I can see when others are coming in. So I'll get started first with opening prayer. So just Father God, we want to thank you for this opportunity to come together. We hope that this is helpful, informative, and that through all of this, that your presence is here, that you're guiding us and directing us, Lord. And we just want to thank you for this opportunity. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So again, this is a financial aid workshop. And so I really want to have an opportunity to help people have a better understanding. And as we're growing, getting even a better understanding of the process. So I'm going to begin. And the very first thing we want to do is really just talk about you've made the decision to invest in your child's education. And thousands of families really sometimes think that you can't afford this, um, or the cost of private tuition over $1 billion in financial aid to make it possible. And so really this is kind of a guide to financial aid: who, what, when, where, and how. And that's really what we're serving and doing this as a purpose, is to kind of give you a guide to financial aid. It's not to be an end all or be all and have all of the answers, but really purposefully to be a guide. So the who is responsible for paying for your child's education, and then the what is financial aid, when should you apply. So these are going to be things that we're going to be covering. How do I apply? How is financial aid calculated? How do I complete the parent's financial statement? And where can I get help? So that's kind of what we'll be going over. And particularly for the schools, because each school has a different setting. I'm actually walking downstairs because I forgot one thing. So you may hear some noise. But the first part: who's responsible for paying for your child's education? And ultimately, the schools begin to think that as a parent that you are. Let me get back up. That you are, as a parent, are responsible for paying for and taking care of your child's financial um, education. So that, I mean, we all kind of know that part. But the next big piece is, what is financial aid? And it looks a little bit different. And especially as some of us remember applying to college and those things, we kind of think of financial aid and we think of scholarships. Well, when you're doing this process, it can actually look a little bit different than just your traditional financial aid process that we have, or we talked about at the college level. In college, you have a lot of different things: work study, scholarships, but this process can be a little bit different. So financial aid is really grants, which is school finance, and it's not a loan. Um, and it does not need to be repaid. And often it's need-based. And there's other forms of assistance, scholarships and loans and payment plans. However, I will say one of the challenges is when we're looking at private schools, is typically the latter part, scholarships, is not something we often see that is given out. We usually see school finance as well as grants and those sort of things, or in the basis of schools kind of giving need. So the other question is, when should I start planning to apply for financial aid? This is one of those things that you want to begin applying and looking at very early on. And typically the time frame is from now, to um, December to, I would say, February. So the earlier you get started with it, the better. You really want to have a better understanding of it as soon as possible, as early as possible, because the earlier you have it, the better. And it's kind of like what I always say, the early bird gets the worm. And that really is what you're seeing in this particular case. The earlier you do it, the better you are with that process. And so one of the things is my recommendation is we want to start, and that's why we're starting now. And we're really wanting to make sure that that you're doing this at an early part thing. I apologize. I'm sorry. I'm getting a little turned around here as I'm pulling up information. Let me see chat to see if there are any questions. Oh, no. So one of the things we want to do is give an overview of the landscape of tuition and financial aid. This is a little bit old. It's about 6 years old, but you can kind of get a sense of the National Association of Independent Schools, what the cost of tuition and landscape looks like. So you get a sense of, on average, this is average, what average tuition looks like. So average tuition, particularly in upper school, is about $21,000. And once again, that's an average. It's not across the board. It's not all schools, but it just gives you an average of what schools are looking at, and then kind of where the overview. It's not to be an end all of in that part. So the biggest piece is, when should you start applying for it? And what we really want to make sure, and that's why we're doing this now, is you don't want to miss deadlines. I always say the 3Ds are very, very important. They're date, deadlines, and directions. And that even goes into financial aid. So you don't want to miss the deadlines. So missed deadlines equals missed dollars. So as I was saying, you want to start now, December, and then it can go as late into, I think I said February is really when I like to make that point. This talks about as late as into April, but the later you go, the more at risk you are of losing and missing out on financial aid dollars. And you don't want to do that, because by doing that, it ultimately can affect. Usually, most schools have a pot of money, and they begin giving out that money at the initial beginning, and then the money becomes less and less as time goes on. So you want to research all the full costs of a tuition and attendance. And that's really important to know, because a lot of schools have those hidden costs for tuition. It can cost, the initial cost may be $14,000, but then when you get into activity fees, endowments, a number of different things, and some of the parents who already have children in private school can already know that. But not private school, but beyond Reed. Some schools, Reed likes to put everything in, so that way when we have field trips and those things, we're not coming back to you for this fee, that fee. If once you pay initially, for the most part, there really aren't any additional fees that I can even think of that really we're asking you to pay $20 here, $30 here. However, some schools do it a little differently. So you really want to have a really good understanding of what the cost is to attend, because the true cost may look a little bit differently, and so that way it can really have a greater impact, and you think, so that way you have a really full and hearty understanding on the requirements. So that's very important. And then you want to make a budget, and you want to make sure you have all your sources of income, subtract all your expenses, and then really kind of have an understanding. And I think most parents, we've been saying this over and over again. Dr. Days says this when she meets with parents, is the importance of doing your taxes early. You want to do those taxes early, because The earlier you do it means the earlier you will have that data and that information that is essential, because a lot of schools, that is all that they look at, are those taxes, and that you want to have done and open early. So, the tips for success. School deadlines for financial aid and admission may be different. So, you really want to understand and have a good understanding of what those deadlines are, um, and kind of know. You don't want to wait until you receive the admission decision to begin your financial aid process. You want to begin it now. And you want to start collecting all of those deadlines and kind of all those things early. And as I've said before, and you know me, I've really talk about that, given that 3-week turnaround. And that's partly here. They even say, you want to give yourselves about a 3-week time frame to get this information out and, available, because it's very, very important to kind of have that as soon as possible. Because it can be, it's very, very important to have all of this as much as possible available and kind of at your resource and at your ready. Essentially, it's as soon as possible, because there's a lot of information, and the earlier you have that information, the better. And so that's kind of a very important next step. So school deadlines and financial aid admissions are, you just want to make sure you want to have as much of this information as possible. And the other piece is, you want to allow time to ask questions. And don't be afraid to reach out to the financial aid office and ask them questions and get information. So the next question is, how do you apply for financial aid? And you're like, well, how do I do that? How do I apply? And really, the tips are, you want to go through request of financial aid information when you first contact the school. So when you first contact the school to say, hi, I'm interested in your applying. So right now, hopefully when you've been out to those open houses, you've gotten information. Then you want to collect all the documents you need. And that will be their financial aid applications, which sometimes is separate than your application to apply. You want to get any school specific forms or questionnaires. You want to get tax related documents. And I will also say this, you want to check I would say, be willing to be very candid and transparent, because they're going to ask a lot of times a lot of information. Now, through many schools, you may need, they have a blind admission policy, which means that the two places look separately. The admissions office operates in one entity, and the financial aid office operates in another. Meaning, if you have need, that's not going to make a determination of whether they're going to accept you or not. So you really want to make sure, you have that information and you kind of know what is, all of the information, but know that most schools operate very separately between their financial aid office and their admission office. So admission is not contingent upon if you have need or not. Not all schools, but most schools. So don't be afraid to approach schools. It's not easy to ask, but you need to be informed. So it's so important that you get as much information as possible. And it isn't an easy question to ask. And then the next thing is, I have so many different things. You want to submit your application through the financial aid service. So most schools use a financial aid servicer, like the school and student services, to offer standard application and help them make their fair assessments. So different schools call it different things. You'll see here, there's a school and student services. There's a financial aid school for school tuition called FAST. There's tuition aid data services called TADS. There's FACTS, which is financial aid. I can't remember what the acronym. So each school has something different. You want to check with each school to see which provider it uses. It's really important that you kind of find out. Some of them, it's great if they use the same. A lot of schools are using TADS now. The Catholic schools use TADS, but you need to be able to, if this school uses TADS and you fill out that application, if this school uses FAST and you need to fill out that application. I know it's tedious. I know it's can be frustrating, but you really want to try and kind of beat on it with all of those things. And the other piece is, what can you expect? And you really want to make sure that you can expect the application to be offered online. Most times it's online now. Very rarely is it print. There may be an application fee that you have to provide or fill out. You may or may not. Some schools you don't. Some schools you might have to, because there's a processing fee for their company to do all of their work. So then schools sometimes send it off to you as the person who's applying. So don't be alarmed or surprised when that happens. It can be annoying, I would admit, because you're like, again, I have to pay another fee or another. Yes, yes, that can be. And then the next question is, how is it calculated? Well, this is an age old question. And I would say each financial aid services provider may use slightly different methods for determining how much you can contribute to your educational expenses. But generally speaking, they consider the following. So it's really, each school is different. They consider income, what that's the money coming in, minus expenses, that's the money going out. And they also then look at assets, what you own, minus liabilities, what you owe. And then family members, everyone who lives in the house. So a few reminders you want to think about is that they also look into retirement accounts are not considered, but contributions to retirement funds are a small percentage. So if you have, which is great, we should be saving our retirement. So if you have an account with $100,000, you're not going to put that in, factor that in, because that's your savings. That's what you are looking for, your golden, when you're older and everything like that. However, as you contribute, that will be factored in a small percentage of it as an expense of going out. And then some of the times, some people are asked, am I expected to take a home equity loan to pay for my education, or how is home value calculated? The important thing to note is that home equity and accounts are calculated into net worth, and net worth is then used to factor into a family's financial strength. So you're not expected to they're not going to ask you that, but your equity in your home could count into your net worth, what you're worth. So it's important to kind of have that knowledge base and knowing that part. And certainly chime in if you have, I can see the chat if there are any questions there. So schools make award decision based on its policy and budget. So one of the things is these companies, those four companies, will factor and kind of give a report back. It's a way of kind of giving a report. And then ultimately the school will make a decision on the aid that it will offer, really based on its policy, and it varies from school to school and its budget. So that's why it's hard to kind of give a blanket overall view, because each school may do it a little bit different. So here you have the tuition, total cost of attendance minus the family contribution. And that's that contribution that was calculated by whatever that service. Remember, we talked about TADS, we talked about FAST, we talked about FACTS. So that's kind of there. And then equals your total need. So then this is what you need. And then the financial aid offered from the school. So the school will get this output from that company, TADS, FACTS, FAST. And then the school financial aid officer, committee, will make then a determine in terms of aid. So in some cases, some schools will make a decision to make that aid or that financial need. Schools can meet the full need. There's some schools who will say we meet 100%. So cost of attendance is $17,000. The based by FAST, TADS, this school and student services program may say that, you can contribute $5,000 after we reviewed your budget, your net worth, your liabilities, your income, your assets. Based on that, we're going to say that your financial need is about $12,000. You can contribute 5, your financial need is 12. And then the school gets this and they make their decision and they say, we can do 100%, not 500%. That'd be great. 100% of the need. We can meet that. There is then the case over here where a school may say we can meet partial need. So that same $17,000 cost of attendance, $5,000 family contribution, and then that financial need is $12,000. The school says we can do, because of their policy, because of their budget, because of their endowment, whatever, that we can meet 75%. We can meet $9,000. So if you remember, you still have that $5,000 that's there. Then when they say we can meet, in terms of that we can give you $9,000 that's there. So there's still that outstanding $3,000 that's there, coupled with the $5,000 that you're still expected. So now your family contribution is $8,000. And where you make that difference up is, certainly I always say you can take this back to the table, and go back to the financial aid office and say, whether it's a letter or whatever, to say, right now we can't really do that 3,000. Is there a way we can do 1,500, or what can we do and how can we work that? So don't be afraid to kind of talk with them. The other piece is not being afraid to compare financial aid offers. School one provided the full need, 100%. So you're looking here and you get that 100% of that aid. And you get this, where school two had that, we talked about that $3,000 difference that you still have to pay out. So you really need to look at that partial need, really taking a look at, well, what can I do? Where can I, well, I'm sorry, here we go. So the school one provided full need. They gave you everything that you needed right then and there. The family contribution, the financial need was 12. So they did the whole package right there. They gave, so bottom line, you would only be contributing about $3,000 because they said we can meet that full need. Do you see that 3,000 or 12 is your financial need, and so the bottom line, you would come out of pocket 3,000. Whereas school two gave partial need, so basically your bottom line would be about 6,500 that would come out of pocket that you would need to pay. So you have to then figure out, okay, looking at this, what can I, taking a comparison and really comparing the two, where is what's best for me and my family. So you need to really I would say, as you're getting those needs and those offers in, it's important to take a look at what works best for your family. The next question, the how, and this is very important. How do I complete the parent financial statement? And this is for the School and Student Services Center, but TAD has a financial services. FAST has one. Each one of these tuition management or financial aid management services has that. So if the school to which you're applying uses this system, financial aid, you should complete the parent financial statement. But we're just going to look at this one for now, because each one has it and they're basically looking at the same information, that same bit of information. So you want to go to, in this case, you would go to the parent section of the website, and apply now. And that's where you would then enter in and create an account, and you would begin to apply for that. And so most of these places now are moving to online. You find guidance for getting started by asking common questions. And so as you have additional questions going in there, you log in, look for additional questions and get additional help. And so that would be a place where you could go to get more help right there as you are navigating and getting familiar with that process. So I encourage you to do that. I also encourage you to call the school when you're filling this out. Your dashboard orients you and tells you where you are in the process. So it lets you know where you are. Are you at the beginning stage? Have you submitted documents? Are you managing your documents? You kind of go from there. And then the next phase of that, the next step would be that now you do this, it gives you an overview before you begin each section. So you know what you're filling out and you know what questions you may have, what documents you might need to bring. And I keep saying documents because you want to try and get everything together. Have all of that, your budget, your financial documents, any statements that you have, because they're going to ask what your mortgage payment is, your retirement statement. If you have two computers that are up, I would say have, laptops available, because a lot of our things are electronic now. I say prepare yourself, get a nice cup of coffee or whatever your favorite, tea. Get your passwords all together, write them down, because that's my frustrating thing. I have all these accounts online. I can't remember the passwords. So try and get all those passwords up and going. So that way, when it's time to input the information, it's a little bit easier to input that information in. If you use something like the Mint, which I love as a budget managing, some of these places interface with them. So you can transpose or impose that information. And then check marks mean that the section is completed. So that you've done this section, you've done that section, and you've completed that. And that's for this process. Each one, but most of them pretty much look very similar. And then you want to select the school that you want this information to be sent to. So some schools, if they're using this system, which makes it nice and easy. In an ideal world, I always say if I could redo this for everybody, I would just have it where you all are using one system and we're not using multiple systems. But alas, we're not. So we have to use these multiple systems, different ones. So you want to just make sure that the school that you are applying to is you're in the right system and you're filling out the information correctly and making sure it's being sent to the correct school. So then the next portion of it for this, but all of them are the same way, is this part is the smart application only presents questions you need to answer. And that's what a lot of them are, because as you begin to populate in, if this doesn't apply to you, if you don't own a home, then you don't need to answer questions about, your equity and those sort of things. But if you own a home, then this will be a portion that you have in there. The other part is you want to input your actual income and estimates for next year's income. So for this year, for 2015, you will have your tax documents for 2015, you will have those documents because we've done the 2015. But for 2016 that we're in now, that's going to be estimated. So you don't have that tax document right now. So that's what you're going to want to do. You'll want to put in for 2015, because you will have the actual ones, and they want you to have your taxes done. Your taxes should be done. And you want to get started on your 2016 as soon as you can in January. But you have to have your taxes done in order to get this process going as quickly and as smoothly as possible. And since you're doing it now, you need to have that 2015 your taxes completed, and then your 2016. Some cases they interface. And they will have, if your tax preparer uses an online service, they may interface with that and they can just really transpose and take the information, which also makes it wonderful and helpful. And then the other piece is you're going to want to, did I go backwards or forwards? Oh no, I perfect. Okay, great. There we go. This is where you want to then input that family assets and your debts. So, once again, we're asking, do you live in your home? If you answered no, do you own a home? If you answer no, then these questions don't apply. When did you purchase it? What was the price? But if you answered yes, then yes, they're going to ask all of those information. And you really don't want to estimate. You want to know this information. You want to know what your purchase price was. You want to know what your current value is. And I know sometimes you feel like it kind of is a problem. And I would say you're going to see these spaces explain. And this is why it takes a lot, but there are real people who are looking at this data and this information. It's not a computer. So a lot of times, yes, the company, TADS and FAS and SSS, will come up with what your family contribution should be. But again, remember, the school financial aid officer, the financial aid committee, they're the ones who are actually real people sitting down and making a determination. Yes, we can give this person this amount of money, or no, we can't. And a lot of times they're pouring over this information to kind of make that final decision and making those things. So because they're real people, tell them, you know what, we took a hit. We're underwater on our mortgage or whatever it is. That's important information to kind of share with them. And you want to be as transparent as possible, because that can become very helpful, and in terms of as they're making a decision. I'm sorry. Sometimes it's so many different back and forth. I'm like, where am I going? I get so excited with talking about this. The other part is, what can afford to contribute? You want to be honest. Be honest. If you can afford to contribute, looking at your budget, and that's why I said you want to have a budget and really say, we can afford to contribute. No school wants to hear zero, because I would venture to say most schools, and I can speak for Reed Temple, everybody pays something to have their child go to a private school. And for the most part, most schools, even their employees, have a policy that, very rarely do you have a student that is there who the family is not contributing anything. So because of that, You don't want to say, we can't contribute anything, because remember, they're going to see your taxes. They're going to see your car payment. They're going to see your or what you've paid for your car, what type of car you own. And you can try not to tell the truth, but they'll see maybe your bank statement. So they're going to see a lot of information. So you can say, I'm not doing it. But when you see this information, they're like, well, wait a minute, you have it here. So why are you saying that you don't have it? So be honest. And that can be very, very helpful for, a conversation in terms of what can be contributed and what can't be. Um, and then this is, I say, the most important thing. Something not captured on that, tell your story. If you are supporting and helping your grandmother in, another part of the country, write that, because that may not show up anywhere. All it may look like is that every 2 weeks you're sending $200, or you're taking $200 out, or $200 is being sent somewhere. Well, where's that money going? Why are you going? Where are you sending it to? Another thing, particularly with these independent schools, not so much religiously affiliated, but if you tithe, people may not really understand what that is. Why every 2 weeks, just in a significant portion, 10%, of your income is going somewhere else. Well, why is that? Explain to them what that means, why you do that. That there are real people who look at this and they may say, oh, okay, that makes sense. So you want, and why that's not a non-negotiable, why I can't take money from there and put it towards my child's education, because for me, fundamentally, this is, a belief that I have. So this is your opportunity to tell that story. I think the more information, it doesn't hurt to be transparent. It doesn't hurt to give a lot of information, and to be very honest and transparent in this. And so then, once you've done that, you will upload your documents. And most days now, you can just, if you have it already scanned in, you'll upload, use your taxes, you upload any other supporting documents that they're asking for, statements, those sort of things. You upload that in there. And once you upload your documents, then they'll let you know that they received your personal statement, and then they'll also let you know what additional documents are outstanding, what they need. Those W-2s, those taxes, yes, they're going to want to see all of that information in there, and they'll let you know if they're missing anything. And then this begins to give you kind of an overview in terms of how to upload your documents. So the last and final slide is that I wanted to go over is, where should I go for help? You want to go to the school admissions, a financial officer. You also want to go to the websites of the TADS, FAST. And what I will do, this here, I just listed that here for the School and Student Services National Aid website. But there are other websites for FAST, TADS, and I'll list that there, that you want to go to. You also want to go to, I can't stress enough, is contacting the school's admissions, the school's financial aid office. Because each school, once again, what I'll give, for example, the Archdiocese of Washington, they use TADS. And that's what the Archdiocese of Washington. But if you're looking at St. Vincent Pallotti, Bishop McNamara, each school then also uses their own financial aid process. So you want to then look at each school and make sure you're meeting their criteria. You're sending their information. You have everything and submit it to them that they need. And so you want to get this in now. This is the time. This is crunch time. This is the beginning of it. And so I wouldn't say crunch time, but it is an important time to start pulling your information together. So this was a wonderful, I think, hopefully helpful overview of the financial aid process. And I wanted to take a moment to kind of helping you to give you information. I don't know if there are any questions that are out there. I'll sit tight for a moment to see if there are any questions. And hopefully this is helpful. And if not, I will log off, but I will also be posting this because I think I recorded it. I hope I recorded it. It does say it's recording. So that way I can post it for people who were not able to log in. That's a great question. I saw that for the TADS process. Can you do one for all schools under one login? There probably is a drop down where you should then be able to, like with this, fill in if the school is available on there in their drop down menu. Then yes, you can add that in. But again, what I was saying, for example, the Archdiocese uses TADS. You then want to contact the school, not contact, go to their financial aid, their page, because you've done the process with TADS for the Archdiocese, but then you want to check and see and make sure that, and I say that because not only Archdiocese uses TADS, believe it or not, several independent schools use TADS as well. So you might be able to do the form for, I'm thinking, where was I? Was it the Field School, I want to say? I can't remember. I think it's the Field School. A number of them, or Georgetown Day, uses TADS as well. And so then when you do their process, you want to make sure that you can probably add those schools to your TADS application, but you also want to make sure that you're doing the documents that are required for each independent, not each Catholic school that you're applying to. And so you want to circle back to, if you're doing TADS for the Archdiocese, you want to circle back to the Catholic schools that you're applying to. I hope that's helpful. You're welcome. Well, thank you for logging on. Hopefully, again, I hope this was helpful, and I will be logging off. But of course, I'm always available via email, call, smoke signals. I'm there. So just let me know. All right. And have a good evening.